I'm Lacey.
Standing in the cold parking lot, the December air biting at my cheeks, I watched as Marcus approached with purpose. Lily was half asleep on my shoulder, exhausted from the whirlwind of the evening she scarcely understood. Marcus had just told me that what I did inside the gala took more courage than most people have in a lifetime. I couldn't help but reflect on how I had come to this point. It all started a few weeks ago. I was a hard-working accountant at a small firm, taking care of my 4-year-old daughter, Mia. My mother, Regina, was a wealthy, cold-hearted woman who sat on the board of the Zishan Zhigong Jijinhui Charity Bright Foundation. She lived in a mansion in a posh neighborhood, surrounded by luxury and privilege, always looking down on me and my simple life. One fateful Monday, I received an email from my company. Due to budget cuts, my position was eliminated. I had worked there for 7 years, putting in countless hours of overtime, catching errors that could have cost clients a fortune. And they couldn't even tell me in person. I drove home in a daze, to our small 2-bedroom apartment. The hallways smelled of stale food, but it was our home. Mia had decorated the window with paper snowflakes, and our tiny artificial Christmas tree stood in the corner, adorned with popcorn garlands she had made at daycare. As if losing my job wasn't enough, soon after, I got an email from my landlord. The building had been sold, and we had to vacate within 30 days. With my savings quickly dwindling and no job prospects in sight during the holiday season, I was desperate. I remembered the small cottage my grandfather, Henry, had left me in his will. But the cottage was in a rural area, far from the city, with no public transportation. It also needed a lot of repairs. I decided to call my mother. I waited until Mia was asleep, because I knew this conversation would be difficult. When my mother answered, she simply said my name, Lacey, in a cold, flat tone. I told her about my job loss, the apartment, and my dire situation. Instead of offering help, she took her time to respond. Then she casually suggested that I sell Grandpa's house. I was shocked. That house was the only thing I had ever inherited, a sign that someone in my family believed in me. I told her I couldn't sell it because the will stated that the ownership couldn't be transferred for 5 years without my written consent. She scoffed and said I was being foolish, then hung up the phone, leaving me more desperate than before. A few days later, I went to my mother's house. Mia was excited to see her grandma. When we arrived, my mother's house was opulent, filled with expensive decorations and the smell of designer candles. My sister, Ivy, and her husband, Leo, were also there. Leo was a wannabe entrepreneur whose startup was on the verge of collapse. My mother got straight to the point. She said I could stay at her place temporarily if I transferred Grandpa's house to a family trust. Ivy added that Leo's company needed collateral for a loan, and the house was just sitting there unused. I firmly refused, stating that Grandpa left the house to me specifically. My mother was furious and told me to figure it out on my own. Over the next couple of weeks, things got worse. I applied to numerous accounting jobs but received only rejections. My savings were almost gone, and I had nowhere to go after the 31st. On Christmas Eve, with no other options, I swallowed my pride and called my mother. She agreed to pick us up. When her shiny Mercedes pulled up, Mia was excited, thinking we were going to her grandma's house. But as we drove, I realized we weren't going to her mansion. Instead, we stopped in front of a homeless shelter. My mother rolled down the window and said coldly, "This is where losers end up. Maybe this will teach you a lesson." Mia looked up at me with big, confused eyes and asked, "Mommy, did we do something wrong?" My mother didn't even glance at her and just motioned for us to get out. As we stood on the sidewalk in the freezing rain, watching her car disappear, a kind-looking man named Vincent, the director of the shelter, approached us. He recognized my mother's car. It turned out that my mother was a board member of the Charity Bright Foundation, which partly funded the shelter, and Vincent was the founding donor. He told me that the $90,000 Mercedes my mother had was supposed to be a van for transporting the homeless to medical appointments, but she had misappropriated the funds for her personal use. He had long suspected financial irregularities, but hadn't had enough proof until now. In the shelter, Mia was scared and confused. She showed me a drawing she had made at daycare. It was a picture of a house with a sun and two stick figures holding hands. She said she wanted a house where nobody could make us leave. That was when I made a silent promise to her that I would never let anyone make her feel worthless. Not long after, I received a call from a lawyer on behalf of the supposed family trust. They offered me $12,000 for a house worth nearly $400,000 and threatened me with legal action if I didn't sign. Ivy also called me, first trying to appeal to my sisterly bond, saying Leo's company was in trouble and they needed the collateral. When I refused, she threatened to tell Child Protective Services that I was an unfit mother for living in a homeless shelter with Mia. Vincent and I decided to fight back. He had an email from the foundation's secretary, Clara, which documented the improper purchase of the Mercedes. But we needed more evidence. We reached out to Clara, who was initially willing to help. She had access to the original purchase documents, but my mother found out that she was talking to us. Clara was scared for her job and her two kids, so she backed out, though she made sure that all the original evidence, including the email and the vehicle registration, was still in Vincent's inbox. The foundation was having its annual gala, where my mother was going to receive the Philanthropist of the Year award. She sent me an invitation, saying it was a chance for me to be part of the family again if I signed the transfer papers. Vincent also had an invitation as the founding donor. We saw this as an opportunity to expose her. In the days leading up to the gala, we gathered all the evidence we could. Vincent contacted two other board members, an old judge named Frederick and a long-time donor named Amelia, who were also suspicious of my mother's actions and agreed to support an audit if we could present solid proof. The night of the gala arrived. Mia and I dressed in our best. We didn't belong in that fancy country club filled with wealthy and well-dressed people. When my mother saw us, she put on a fake smile. The award ceremony started, and my mother gave a speech about family and second chances, looking directly at me. After the ceremony, she approached me with Ivy and Leo. She presented the transfer papers and offered me $25,000 to sign. People around us started to watch, and some even pressured me to accept for Mia's sake. Just when I felt the most cornered, Vincent stood up. He announced that as the founding donor, he was exercising his right to request an independent audit due to documented financial irregularities. He showed the documents proving that the foundation's money had been used to buy the Mercedes for my mother's personal use. Clara's email was read out loud, and the gasps in the room were audible. Ivy and Leo tried to slink away, but someone recognized Leo and mentioned his company's bankruptcy. I then stood up and told the whole truth about my mother's attempts to force me to sign over Grandpa's house for Leo's failing business. When Mia, in her innocent voice, asked my mother why she left them at the cold shelter on Christmas, my mother was speechless. The board quickly voted to suspend my mother from her position pending the audit. Many donors withdrew their contributions. My mother was left standing there, holding the useless trophy, as everyone turned away from her. After the gala, Vincent offered me a job at the foundation's financial services division, saying they needed someone with integrity. He also told me that the foundation had a program to help repair Grandpa's house. In the following months, things changed for the better. Grandpa's house was renovated. Mia and I moved in, and she was happy to plant a garden just like Great-Grandpa used to. I started my new job at the foundation, and my mother was ordered to repay the misappropriated funds or face criminal charges. One day, I received a text from Ivy. She apologized for everything and asked if we could meet. I thought about our childhood together, but I also remembered the pain and threats she had caused. I told her that I wasn't ready yet, that I needed time to heal. Spring came, and Mia and I planted tomatoes in the garden. She asked me why Grandma didn't visit. I explained to her that sometimes people we love make bad choices and that it's okay to love them from a distance while we keep ourselves safe. She nodded, and I knew she understood. Watching her play in the garden, I realized that I didn't need my mother's approval to know my worth. I finally believed in myself.